Well, good morning. Welcome to all members and guests to the 32nd annual conference. It's my fourth, so I'm pretty excited about being here, as I have been for the previous three. I know a lot of you have committed a lot of your time and considerable resources to be here. So the bargain I have to make with you and my colleagues on the American Turkish Council is to make this a rewarding experience, as rewarding an experience as possible. I've got to make it richly rewarding, just as it has been for the thousands of Americans and Turks who have preceded us in the 31 other conferences that have been held. Just a little more than 2 weeks ago, Prime Minister Erdogan was the guest of President Obama, and the spotlight shone on the bilateral relationship in ways that cannot be duplicated. Senior White House officials said, in a mixture of humor and exhaustion, that it was 24/7 Turkey. This week is our opportunity to build on their flourishes. We will have a different, but I'm quite confident, important impact on this relationship that shows enduring strength and a vision that is increasingly shared. The White House statement of 2 weeks ago opened with the following words: "The United States and Turkey share a strong partnership and friendship rooted in common values, strategic interest, and reinforced by the enduring links between the peoples of both countries." But in my view, it all begins with the reaffirmation that we make each year at the annual conference, and that is that we're friends, we're allies, and we're partners. Now, I'm not going to try to recap all that has occurred in our two countries in the year since we've been last together. Too much is happening at too fast a pace, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of major events. A year ago, I said whether the American people elected a President Romney or a second term President Obama, I could assure that U.S.-Turkey relations would continue to be richly valued and kindly treated. The invitation to Prime Minister Erdogan to visit in the first 4 months of the second Obama administration is a solid reaffirmation of that fact. There is much to credit the importance of stability and continuity in our relationship. Turkey, unfortunately, is bearing an increasingly heavy burden for the pain and suffering that Bashar al-Assad is inflicting on the Syrian people. Upwards of 400,000 refugees, including 200,000 in camps along the border, increased political and social tensions, cross-border bombings, and bloodshed. Whatever else can be said about the Syrian crisis, there can be little doubt that it has driven closer national security collaboration between our two countries. The radar deployment near Malatya and the U.S. contribution to NATO's deployment of the Patriot systems are tangible evidence of that. So too is the substantial U.S. humanitarian support that flows to and through Turkey to Syria. The size and pace of personal contact and communications is, I believe, the best it has been in decades. Secretary Kerry remarked at the luncheon for Prime Minister Erdogan that a week doesn't go by but that he speaks with Foreign Minister Davutoglu several times, and that he had spent more time in Turkey than he'd actually spent in his own home. For the first time in a generation, Turkey appears to have a genuine opportunity to resolve the Kurdish issue and end more than 3 decades of internal violence and bloodshed. I, for one, am optimistic that this time it can be made to work. And if it does succeed, it will mean a dramatic difference in the social, political, and economic lives of all Turks. While this is quintessentially a Turkish issue, I think it's important and valuable that the United States publicly and repeatedly state our support for this risky and courageous political event. Same must be said for the resumption of full Turkey and Israel diplomatic relations. I'm convinced that Turkey does have a valuable role to play in support of a broader Middle East peace, but it can play that role only if it enjoys the friendship and the trust of each of the parties. And economically, we must count both our countries among the fortunate. For while our growth over the past year has not been all that we'd like it to be, it was in both cases positive and far better than many of our European and global partners. Our economic health and promotion of ever greater bilateral trade and investment were addressed at length by our President and the Prime Minister of Turkey during their meetings. It falls now to us to execute. And for while governments can create the environments within which business can thrive, it is up to the private sector to see that it gets done. So I make this commitment to you. The American Turkish Council will pursue every reasonable opportunity to increase trade and investment between our two countries in both directions. And it will monitor with care the developments in the U.S.-EU trade negotiations with an eye to assuring that Turkey-U.S. trade and investments are not harmed in that process. Later this morning, a distinguished panel will discuss our political landscape. I'm confident that panel will treat the details of these and other changes with the understanding, balance, and critical judgments that they deserve. Now, we are all quite mindful, I think, of events this weekend in Turkey. In a statement released yesterday, the White House said that the United States believes peaceful public demonstrations are a part of democratic expression. Turkey's long-term stability is best guaranteed by upholding the fundamental freedoms of expression, assembly, and association. The statement called on Turkish security forces to exercise restraint. And earlier today, President Gül called for common sense and said, democracy is not just about voting. The message has been taken. What is necessary will be done. And he called on all sides to exercise restraint. And I'm sure every person in this audience joins me in the hope for an early return to peace and tranquility in Turkey. Now, tomorrow, consistent with our conference theme of "The Time Is Now," we will have an equally distinguished panel look at Turkey's mega projects for 2023 and the enormous opportunities they present for partnerships in construction, in equipping and managing, maintaining bridges, airports, roads, canals, high-speed rail, power plants, hospitals, and universities. The defense sector will examine what is new in defense cooperation, including a first look at where we are and where Ankara and Washington are going on the question of cyber security. And we will have the opportunity to hear from the very best in business and government leadership. Vice President Joe Biden, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for the Economy, Ali Babajan. And we're very happy to have the House Committee Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers, to speak to us tomorrow morning. And in a very few minutes, we're going to be hearing from an American corporate leader, Steve Gaffney, Chairman and the CEO of DynCorp, a global government support service company employing more than 25,000 people in scores of countries worldwide. Steve, I'm sure, will inspire us to even greater entrepreneurial effort. Well, we've got a packed agenda. We've got a tight focus on a relationship that I'm firmly convinced is among the most important in the world. I'm delighted that you have chosen to be with us for this full experience. So again, let me express my welcome. And now, express my great pleasure at again having the opportunity to introduce to you our conference co-chairman and the chairman of the Turkish-American Business Council, Haluk Dinçer. This is Haluk's fifth conference as TIC chairman, and he is well known to most of us in this audience. He's a holder of a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Michigan. And Haluk joined the Sabancı Group in 1995, and 11 years ago became Food Group president, and 9 years ago, the president and chairman of Sabancı Holdings Food and Retail Group. Now, it has been my personally distinct pleasure to be able to work with Haluk for these past 4 years on this conference and in the pursuit of common purpose. That is the common purpose of the promotion of bilateral business investment. Always I've been impressed by his leadership. Always I've been impressed by his instinct for business, and mostly by his own personal kindness. So please join me in welcoming my friend, Haluk Dinçer.
Thank you, Rich, for your kind introduction. Before I start, I would like to say a few words about the recent events in Turkey because I get so many questions. Now, as of today, you may have read it also in the news, things are much more calmed down. There's still some tension on the streets, but things are much more improved. And Prime Minister Erdogan left for his pre-planned visit to Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco. And so I believe that Turkey will emerge from all these events as a much stronger democracy, a much more participative democracy. And this morning I also received a message from Prime Minister Erdogan that I would like to share with you, first in Turkish and then in English. TAİK ATC Ortak Yıllık Konferansı'na nazik davetiniz için teşekkür ederim. Programım dolayısıyla aranızda bulunamadığım için üzüntülerimi ifade etmek isterim. Memnuniyetle söylemeliyim ki iki dost ve müttefik ülkenin her alanda olduğu gibi ekonomik ve ticari ilişkilerinin de her geçen gün güçlendiğini görmekteyiz. Her iki ülkenin iş dünyası ve hükümetleri tarafından daha çok önem kazanan ve her yıl daha büyük katılımla gerçekleştirilen ortak konferansa başarılar diliyor. Değerli katılımcılara sevgi ve saygılarımı sunuyorum. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, Başbakan. Now, I also need to translate it, of course. I would like to thank you for your kind invitation to the TAİK ATC Annual Conference. I must express my regrets for not being with you due to my schedule. However, I would like to state with gratitude that the relations between our two countries, united in friendship and alliance, keep getting stronger in every single area, including business and trade. The conference is held in highest regard by our two countries' business and government authorities, and the growing attendance each year is a testament to this. I would like to wish you all a very successful conference and offer you, the distinguished participants, my deepest sympathies and regards. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, Prime Minister. Distinguished guests, I would like to offer you a very warm welcome to the 32nd Annual Conference on U.S.-Turkish Relations. It's wonderful, it's great to be here. I see so many friendly faces dedicated to bolstering the model partnership between the United States and Turkey. Our common aspirations for our partnership remain large: peace, security, and prosperity for our peoples, close cooperation in securing these objectives, and success in defending them. In April 2009, President Obama and Prime Minister Erdogan agreed to elevate U.S.-Turkish bilateral economic relations to a strategic level in line with our historically close political and military ties. And in the last 4 years, U.S.-Turkish commercial relations have scaled new highs. The friendship and cooperation that exists between our two countries not only serve bilateral interests, but also constitute an essential element of the broader partnership between the United States and Europe as a whole. This is of particular importance, of course, considering the upcoming talks between the EU and the US on a transatlantic trade and investment partnership, so-called this TTIP in short. Referred to in some circles as an economic NATO, a fully operational free trade agreement between the US and the EU has the potential to not just tip, but completely reset the global economic scales. Under current outlines, the TTIP would account for 54% of all global production and nearly 1/3 of all global trade, proving it to be the most significant international trade agreement since the World Trade Organization. A free trade agreement between the EU and the United States would have a monumental effect on Turkey. The customs union between Turkey and the European Union stipulates that Turkey apply the same tariffs as the EU to industrial products imported from third countries. The problem arises when EU signs free trade agreements with other countries, who in turn are not legally required to extend the same treatment to Turkey. As such, Turkey can be faced with export tariffs from third-party countries while keeping its import tariffs in line with the EU. This is why it's absolutely necessary for Turkey and the United States to begin concurrent talks as soon as possible to liberalize their trade relations. It's time for the United States and Turkey to expand on the 1990 Bilateral Investment Treaty and the 1999 Turkey-US Trade and Investment Framework Agreement. It's now time for a free trade agreement between the United States and Turkey. During Prime Minister Erdogan's recent visit, both he and President Obama noted their shared belief that free trade should be the driving force in our commercial ties, and there is a need for enhancing and diversifying our economic relations through increased and balanced trade, greater investments, and joint ventures. The strategic dimension that our relations have already reached and the agenda we have set for the future necessitate arrangements for an institutional framework which will enable us to monitor the progress that we hope to achieve. And we welcome the announcement from 2 weeks ago that Turkey and the United States will create a high-level committee that will focus on increasing trade and investment between the two countries. This is an agreement for a practical process that requires, of course, further development. The desire to boost the trade partnership between the US and Turkey was evident through Prime Minister Erdogan's accompaniment of nearly 100 businessmen on his trip 2 weeks ago. Now the responsibility falls on both governments, on all my colleagues at that business trip, and in fact everyone in this room, ensure that the US-Turkey Free Trade Agreement doesn't remain a mere hypothesis. We must back up our words and our hopes with deeds. Distinguished guests, between 2009 and 2011, US exports to Turkey increased 106%, and from 2010 to 11, US FDI in Turkey nearly tripled. In fact, companies from the US provide the most FDI in Turkey. The US's share of investment decisions in Turkey increased from only 18% in 2007 to 28% in 2012. Sectors such as business services, ICT, chemicals, transport, and logistics have attracted significant American attention. Over 1,200 US companies now operate in Turkey, an increase of nearly 50% since the year 2007. In our last 2 years, new investments by Cummins, Pratt & Whitney, IAS, Dow, GE, 3M, Amgen, and Pfizer are illustrative of increasing US interest in Turkey. Now, many of the new successful joint ventures between US and Turkish firms are designed to manufacture innovative products in Turkey for both domestic demand and export to third country markets. Distinguished guests, Prime Minister Erdogan's recent visit also underlined the dedication of both our countries to valiantly serving our common interest in a lawful international order and a stable region. It was made clear that normal relations with Syria cannot be affected by either country, with the current Syrian regime still in power. Along with both our countries' goal to have a permanent peace settlement in the Middle East, this is one of the 2 pillars of strategic US-Turkey cooperation in Turkey's immediate region. The geopolitical importance of Turkey for the United States is now intertwined with its importance as an ally and symbol, politically, culturally, and economically. We are also convinced that the scope of our relations would be incomplete if cooperation areas such as education and science are neglected. We recognize that the innovation economy is critical to creating jobs, good jobs, and robust economic growth in both countries. Ladies and gentlemen, lastly, I would like to extend my gratitude to the committee chairs, to our board members, to our hardworking staff, both at ATC and TAIC, for all they have done in facilitating our conference this year, and to our members for their friendship, and to our sponsors for their generous financial support. Wish you all a very fruitful conference, and thank you all very much for your attendance. Thank you.
Haluk, thank you very much. As I said in my introduction, my view, I think, shared here in this room, that Turkey is indeed fortunate to have business leadership of your quality. And I thank you personally for your continued efforts as co-chair of this conference. Well, now it's my privilege to introduce the chairman and the CEO of DynCorp, Mr. Stephen Gaffney. Steve joined DynCorp International and became its chairman and CEO in the summer of 2010, when DynCorp was bought out by Cerberus Capital Management and went private. Steve came to DynCorp from IIP Worldwide, where he'd served as well as CEO, and before that, he served with ITT Corp as president of Defense Electronics. He holds a degree in electrical engineering from Lafayette College. Now, as I indicated previously, DynCorp has approximately 25,000 employees working in 35 countries, most of whom are allies with the United States. This is an industry where service requirements are constantly changing, corporate nimbleness and creativity are at a premium, and just by the way, the U.S. government could not function overseas without DynCorp. Now, in a recent interview for the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, Steve Gaffney identified the establishment of a common value system among all employees and hands-on leadership as the most important factors in an efficient and profitable corporate culture. So his is a story of personal and corporate success. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Steve Gaffney.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Ambassador, for those kind words, and thanks for having me here today. As I consider, those who will be speaking to this esteemed group over the next few days, it's both an honor for me to be here, but also it's quite humbling. Less than 3 weeks ago, President Obama and Prime Minister Erdogan met very close to this ballroom to discuss issues of vital national interest and to both of our nations. And the list of the issues and the challenges that they discussed were quite daunting. They discussed Syria, the war, and the humanitarian issues that exist. They talked about Iran. They talked about Iraq. They talked about the Middle East, peace. They talked about other complex issues that you would expect when two nations of close allies come together of mutual interest. At DynCorp International, we follow these meetings closely, not just because it's front page news, but it's because our capabilities and the programs that we support globally relate exactly to foreign policy and national security issues. We help with humanitarian issues around the world. We help support developing and post-conflict communities grow. And the solutions that we provide globally help provide a foundation for global security going forward. But unlike many of the great companies that are in this room, we don't accomplish these tasks through the products. We don't build airplanes, and we don't build helicopters, and we don't build tanks, we don't build radios or weapon systems. What we provide is the know-how, the high-performing teams with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to make a difference, to help sustain those systems, and to help build an organic capability on a go-forward basis. What we help provide are the subject matter expertise, the trainers to help educate so that, again, organic capability can be developed for future generations. And when you have a company whose products are really its people, it's really imperative that you have a key value system across that enterprise to hold the team together. It's the establishment of trust that's so important in a high-performing team and develop positive relationships. And it's that trust and it's that relationship that you extend to your customers. In this regard, when I looked at the theme for this conference and I looked at the title, it's about partnerships. It's especially applicable and especially appropriate because partnerships in so many ways are really about shared values. They're about shared goals. They're about trust. It's about relational capacity. So taken from this perspective, partnership reflects exactly what DynCorp International's approach is doing business around the world. And I believe we have an unbeatable record in partnering. I noted that we work with our customers as partners in important operations, whether it's aircraft maintenance, support, reset, whether it's logistics, support, demining, weapon removal, whether it's base operations or even supply chain support. Our 25,000 people around the globe are there supporting national security and foreign policy objectives. Although a large part of our business has been directly supporting the United States government, we're very proud of the fact that for over 20 years, we have developed very key relationships with other countries, allies, in support of their needs. We actually help these countries build that organic capability to have land vehicle depot capability, aircraft maintenance and support, supply chain capability, and that allows them to keep the highest level of readiness in support of their national security and foreign policy objectives. So just last month, we took those 20+ years of experience building relationships around the world, and we stood up a new business area called Dine Global, focused on pursuing international and commercial partnerships. So in thinking about our future state, I see Turkey as an important partner. We know that Turkey is a great place to do business and is home of extraordinary business savvy. Just consider, how the economy has surged in recent years when other countries have stumbled, with GDP having tripled since 2002 and trade strong and the business environment, is continuing to evolve. It's a place where we know that we can partner with firms that provide great engineering and construction expertise, logistics capabilities, experienced managers, experienced skilled workers. And we also know firsthand that the positive entrepreneurial spirit that exists. We're currently engaged in discussions with the Ministry of Defense in providing support for important programs inside the country. And we're working with great companies like ATC, a great Turkish company in the defense, logistics, engineering, and energy industry, as well as Barkay and Saat, it's a great construction company in the world. We're also pursuing work in support of the United States Air Force in the region and are developing business relationships with many companies in support of that initiative. So we're always on the lookout for great companies, and great companies start with great core values, a great understanding of the need for a good partnership and for great relational capacity. It's that partnership that really is necessary to achieve a mutual beneficial business objective. So our added value to the partnership is a worldwide global management team that's really sensitive to the needs around the world. We have a large presence in Middle East and Northern Africa, and we are aware of the vital Turkish business sector, obviously, in that region. We know that there's Turkish companies working hard to rebuild Libya. Turkish companies are providing support throughout the Gulf and expanding presence in Africa. So it's my interest and the interest of my company to get to know you and get to learn of your pursuits, your challenges, and where we can actually partner for a stronger tomorrow. So looking ahead, as I see our new Dine Global entity growing and establishing relationships around the world and joint venture partnerships, I could actually see a Dine Turkey entity being stood up in the not too near future. So in closing, our countries are partnering on the most complex and sensitive foreign policy and national security challenging facing the world. So I believe that same partnership is the key to advancing the business goals of my company, I think, and as well as yours. So I sincerely hope that over the course of this conference, we'll be able to have an opportunity to sit down and discuss some of the challenges that we mutually face. And whether you're on the side of government or on the side of fellow business people like myself, especially those Turkish companies in attendance. Let's discuss how we can form a joint, shared, bright future. So thank you. Thanks again, Ambassador Armitage, for having me here this morning. It's a real privilege and an honor, and I'm looking forward to a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Gaffney, for your willingness to join us this morning and for the words of business expertise and experience and inspiration. We are greatly appreciative of your words and of your support. Now I'd like to invite to the podium the Honorable Murat Bayar, Undersecretary of the Ministry of National Defense, and conference co-chairs Haluk Dinçer, Ambassador Richard Armitage. It is the privilege and the pleasure of conference to present to the Honorable Murat Bayar the Defense Industry Award. And I'll read the citation, Haluk, if you would present the citation, and Ambassador Armitage the award. In recognition of his long and distinguished career as the Undersecretary of Defense Industries for almost a decade, for his leadership in transforming and modernizing the Turkish defense industry and the modernization of SSM in its responsibilities for oversight of Turkey's defense production and procurement, and for his unstinting support of U.S.-Turkey defense cooperation and the broader Turkey-U.S. relationship. The Defense Industry Award is presented to the Honorable Murat Bayar. Murat, would you like to say something, please?
I never miss a chance.
Before he starts, I have to tell you that the original program had Murat speaking for 25 minutes. So
25 minutes. Okay, I'll try to squeeze it in. Well, first, it's definitely a great privilege for me to have this recognition. As it stated, I've been on this position for almost a decade now. This is my 10th time I'm attending one of these annual conferences. So that makes about a third of all the conferences, I suppose, since the beginning. So that makes me one of the fixtures here, and therefore I should maybe give a report of what we've been able to accomplish over this decade to add some meaning to this award. First of all, I definitely believe in the value of this platform, and it's been grown over time in content and meaning by great contributions of Ambassador Armitage, Ambassador Holmes, and Mr. Dinçer. And why is it so? It's a very unique platform. It brings the government and industry together. And in that sense, I believe this is one of the very few opportunities for us all sit together in one room and debate this relationship in a wide spectrum. So this is both the public sector and private sector together. And this is what brings value today. If we talk about partnership in trade and investment, it requires this strong bond between the governments and industry and public sector and private sector working together. That is how we can create this great value. And between these two countries, this relationship is, of course, for me, very important to comment. But especially in defense sector, given where Turkey sits. This is one of the places on Earth where we have the deepest fault lines is passing, and we are on the crossroads of this. And we are reminded of this fact by events on and on again. When we think we are dealing with one problem, another one pops up. And those problems, as mentioned by the previous speaker, are very complex in nature and requires all the resources, all the strengths of both countries to deal with them. And defense industry is part of that. If Turkey needs to deal with these defense and security issues, we need a strong industry to support and equip our defense and security forces. And this is not a requirement of passing, as we all know. This stays, this will stay. Unfortunately, for Turkey to deal with, we should be prepared for those issues, for those risks. And what have we done a bit differently, maybe over the last decade? And together, when I first attended this conference, one of the feedbacks I was given was, Turkey is always on the requesting end of this partnership. You always ask for something, want for something. You require technology, support, capabilities, but you don't do your own part in this. I took that message, and over the last 10 years, in a partnership, again, in Turkey, between the Turkish Armed Forces, between the Defense Ministry, and between the industry, we have done two things slightly differently. One, we have invested significantly in technology in Turkey, in R&D capabilities. Today, defense sector in Turkey is the largest R&D spender. We employ the largest amount of engineers, number of engineers, and the highest skilled engineers in Turkey in defense sector today. And we have seen the fruits of that investment. Last year, we unveiled the first Turkish main battle tank. Last year, we unveiled the first Turkish aircraft, Turkish trainer aircraft. We completed development testing of the unmanned air vehicle, Anka. And we are building much stronger partnerships with the US industry because we need each other's strengths. We cannot just keep compensating the weaknesses of one partner. We need the strengths of both partners to deal with these issues. So this is one aspect of what we've tried to do, investing in R&D from the Turkish resources. The second aspect, we tried to engage the private sector much more effectively in our defense industry programs. These are private sector companies in other sectors who built their capabilities in other sectors. These are small and medium-sized companies, SMEs in Turkey. Last month we had our defense exhibition, which many of you attended. We had 800 companies from the world coming. This was one of the best exhibitions we had. 255 of them were Turkish companies presenting their capabilities and technologies. Most of them private sector companies, small, medium-sized enterprises. Today in Turkey, the number of those companies is more than 1,000. Companies are now contributing to the defense sector in Turkey. I visited some of them, not all of them. I was in Bursa, for example, last week. I visited 3 of those companies. And you cannot imagine the level of capability they are building, the ambition, the excitement they have. That gives me a lot of courage that we can actually build this industry to serve our armed forces and to serve this partnership. So I'm very flattered and excited by this award. Thank you. It took me 10 years to get it. I don't take this as a message of don't keep coming back, we gave your award. But thank you, Jim. It's really great recognition. I'm very encouraged by this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Murat. You can't imagine what we have in store for you 10 years from now. That concludes our opening plenary session. I want to remind you that we will reassemble here for the political horizon, political landscape panel discussion at 10 o'clock. Because we are missing one speaker that we had planned on, Rafat Hizarchiklioglu, and we're sorry that he wasn't able to make it. We are concluding this session a little bit earlier than anticipated. It gives you more time for networking and coffee, but please do return at 10 o'clock, a few minutes before that, so that we can start promptly at 10 o'clock for the political landscape discussion. Thank you.